Compared side to side, here are the two tents. The Eureka Apex 2XT two-person tent is much larger than the new to me anyway, Naturehike Mongar 2 plus the mat. Weight-wise, the Eureka is 8 pounds 9.5 ounces. The Mongar 2 is 4 pounds 10 ounces, complete with mat. Well, it's decision time for the new tent. I've just set it up in my living room temporarily just to see if the cot would fit. Because if the cot wouldn't fit, it wouldn't be a keeper. And here we go. The Helinox Cot One just barely fit. I had to assemble it inside and then flip it over. It barely flip over, but because of the mesh ends, I was able to flip it over. So that's good. Here is the tent and footprint. Here is an add-on vestibule. So this isn't part of that tent, but it is designed to work with a tent. And then this is just a footprint that I bought for the vestibule. When you take the tent out of the bag, that's what you get. You get the bag on the top there, you get the mat, and you get the tent itself. This is the whole tent unwrapped. Tent pegs with some paracord on its little storage bag. These are the shock corded tent poles, aluminum tent poles, and it also has a storage bag underneath. This here is the fly, and this is the tent. Now this is the added vestibule, which I have not opened yet. So this is the first time I'm going to be unbagging this one. And there is the vestibule all opened out. Inside you'll find a few more stakes with some more shock cords, or not shock cords, but paracords. You'll find some additional aluminum poles for the vestibule, and you'll find also this is actually the vestibule material. The bag comes with instructions on how to set up the vestibule right here, and that's very similar to the tent bag. The tent bag also has instructions sewn into it, so you'll never be without your instructions. These are what the tent pegs look like. Not very big, they're actually fairly small and compact. I'm going to just use this just to see how durable they are. So first the mat is staked down, and I've put a little peg on each corner. So now the next thing to do is to mount the poles. The poles are on, and that windmill at the top there is the cross beam. Now the cross beam has to be crossing over the main beam with it on top. So the cross beam is going to be on top. If it's underneath like this, then the tension pulling down will put strain on this plastic joint. So it's got to be like this, and it's got these little corner joints, which is pretty good. They're aluminum, and they seem pretty strong. Down at the footprint, this is how the pole goes into little pieces on the bottom. So with this configuration here, one can opt to just throw the fly over and just have the fly on the mat and no inner tent. And that would be used to either save weight if you're a backpacker, or to put up the tent with the fly first and then the inner tent afterwards, if it's you're putting up the tent in the rain. I'm going to just go ahead and put the inner tent up and hook it on and show you what that looks like. No fine adjustments have been made at the corners yet, but as you can see, the footprint fits fairly exactly to the base of the tent. This is how it looks. Pretty neat. I do like how this cross beam here pushes out these corners of the tent so that you get a little bit more verticality on the sides of the tent. That's pretty cool. Now let's go throw the fly over it. And there is the Mongar setup with the ring fly on it. Again, I've not tensioned down the corners, these corners here, tension them down anymore to adjust them. They look just fine to me. And the ends, I've got the vent open. Here's the vent. Never had that on my Eureka tent. And of course I've pulled this off to create a little bit of an offset so that you can get more ventilation. It comes also with these tie down points here for where if you're in a more windy situation. But this looks great. This is what they call a D door, a D-shaped door. So it doesn't go all the way around like up to there or anything like that. It just starts on the top and it comes around the bottom like that. So that's something to consider if you don't like D doors. You can see there's a hook for your light, and that's that complex corner point. Hardest part of putting up this tent was getting that joint, in the cross beam, getting that joint fixed because it was pretty tight. But other than that, I mean, everything looks good. It's got pockets in the ends. There's one pocket. I would have much preferred pockets in the corners, but this tent has got the pockets on the ends. And there's my ventilation, and there's my ventilation. And of course, being a mesh tent, it's got ventilation all around. This here is the loft, the gear loft. So you can put whatever you need in here. Pretty cool. The sides of the tent are fairly vertical, especially on the long sides, and even on the ends. You can see this is pretty vertical here because the poles go up kind of square to the ground, so it doesn't lean in so much. It is pretty straight, which will mean that my cot, which is pretty long, will fit just fine. I've got a couple of inches before I hit the gear loft here, but that's not too bad. Putting on my pants in here might be a little bit of a challenge. In the old tent or in the Eureka tent, I could kneel down and get the job done, partially kneeling, partially sitting, but this one is going to be more of a challenge. The floor area on this tent is a little bit smaller than the Eureka, so it'll be a little bit of a tighter squeeze when I have my gear inside, but it shouldn't be too bad. Now, to fit the vestibule, I have to roll up both sides of the fly like that and undo the bottoms. Now, the instructions that come with the vestibule are essentially garbage. This is the part for the vestibule. That is nothing. That's just describing the parts that come with the Mongar 2 tent. First of all, you've got to orient the vestibule correctly. It's kind of a heart shape, and then you clip on these on both sides to the main cross beam. Okay, you clip that on, and then on the corners here you can see there are additional grommets here to attach to the corners of the tent. Sorry about the plane going overhead. So let me try and hook this on to the tent. As you can see, if you know that you're going to put the vestibule on, better to do it without the rain fly in place. So the first step is done. This corner also hooks onto the cross member, and the vestibule also clips onto the bottom of the pole. Everything is attaching to the bottom of this pole. I've got to put back the fly down there in a second, but I have a feeling that what I'll do first or next is insert the rod and have this thing erected. But you can see how this is coming together. I mean, once this folds over here, I can actually clip that on now if I can manage to do it, because like I said before, this is the hardest part of this job. Putting up the tent is clipping this thing here onto the cross member. It's pretty tight. Let me go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to thread the rod through this. So the rod is threaded through, and now it's just a matter of affixing the ends of it like this. doing it with one hand, and then doing the same thing on the other side. So after the poles are fixed to the corners there, then you simply stick down this corner here and erect the tent or erect the vestibule. There are additional tie down points here. You can tie this down and stick it down in more windy conditions, but I guess you leave, once you fix that point back again, this point here for the fly, you just leave the fly rolled up like this when you've got the tent, the vestibule deployed. You connect up all the corners again. It's amazing how many of these little red grommets can fit in the bottom of the pole. But it's got these vents in the ends, so that's great. And then here's the door open. Now that footprint that I bought, remember I said I don't know how wide it'll be. It's going to be the length of the tent, but it's not necessarily going to be the whole width. You know, I'm happy if it goes up to this webbing here. I don't know what this piece here at the entrance is for. Seems like it's there to trip you up, but I guess I'll figure it out later on. But it's tied to the two anchor leads for the vestibule, and those have to be sticked down on the bottom of those poles. So what is this for? I don't know, but maybe I'll cut it off. Right now it's not serving any purpose. At least this one here is on the tension. This one's on the tension, and it's kind of like, you know, defining how wide the vestibule should be, and it's keeping the tension against the poles. So this one is definitely necessary. This one, not so much. You could also stick down this corner of the vestibule, and I'm not gonna bother to do that here in my garden, but let's get that fly and see how it works. After watching my explanation on how to set up the vestibule, do you think that these instructions are useful? As you can see, it's acceptable. It goes right up to that corner there. It's a little bit big actually, lengthwise, to fit underneath here, but this is quite acceptable for me because I still got a little grassy area to stick my stove and other stuff that I don't want to get to make a mess of my footprint. So headroom, my head touches. So it's not great that way, but I don't care. As for the waterproof rain, you see this? The vestibule extends well underneath the fly. This is the fly of the tent right here, and that extends well underneath, so rain will not get in. So this, aside from the crumpled mat on the vestibule, that is how it looks. And there's the total side view of the Mongar with the vestibule, Mongar 2. And there's the other door open, so you can get a nice cross ventilation right through the tent. Vestibule ventilation, open door, and open door on the other side. Now we're gonna put up the Eureka tent next to it and see the difference. Here we've got the Eureka Apex 2 XT setup next to the Mongar, and you can see the difference in height right off the bat. Eureka is quite much higher in the middle, and which is a good and a bad thing. For spaciousness inside, headroom is better, but for wind, you know, ability to stand the wind, a flatter tent makes more sense. But this is certainly a much higher tent, and the Eureka has got double doors, so it's got that mesh, plus it's got a door on the inside. Let's go inside and see what it looks like. The Eureka has this double door like I was talking about. So it's a liner here plus the mesh, and they can be zipped apart. And you can see I've got the inner door tucked away in the corner pockets. This tent has corner pockets, which I do like. different shaped. This square at the bottom, and this one here is triangular. It's got this gear loft as well. Doesn't have a nice hook for your light, but and it's got these panels, these mesh panels on the end, but no ventilation window or opening in the fly. So it's less airflow. And also you can see the fly goes all the way down pretty low, and the ends are kind of solid. So this is more like a true 3-season tent, 4-season maybe. It'll do better in winter than the Mongar 2. So there you have it, folks. Quick setup video for the Mongar 2 and the Vestibule for the Mongar 2, and also a quick comparison with the Eureka Apex 2XT tent. That is my other tent. I was thinking maybe I'd sell that tent and just stick with the Mongar, but let's see how it goes.